For this project, we're going to learn how to run the metal lathe or engine lathe by turning or machining a round piece of drill rod into a center punch. What's with the name engine lathe? Well, it's a name that just applies to traditional 19th or 20th century lathes with an automatic feed to the cutting tool, as opposed to earlier lathes which used handheld tools and were manually fed. The usage of engine here is just in the mechanical sense. What is a metal or engine lathe used for? The engine lathe is often used to cut metal and can create various, generally round, forms. The metal workpiece is secured in the lathe and turned. The machine uses special cutting tools to create the desired shapes. The engine lathe works on the principle of the material is being rotated against a cutting tool. A lathe is a foundational machine in modern manufacturing. While our lathes here are manual, most modern equipment uses CNC or computer numerical control to make precise and intricate parts. Both machines, though, use the same core concepts. For this project, you're going to have to know several parts of the lathe. Let's start first with the headstock. This is what supports the work and what has the spindle belt or speed control connected to it. This is where you can put different holders to support your work. Installed on this lathe is a 3-jaw chuck, but we will also turn between centers on a faceplate and live center, and we'll see that on our next lathe here in a minute. Next is the carriage assembly. On top here we have the quick change tool holder. We'll talk more about this in a separate video. The tool holder sits on the compound rest, which is what moves diagonally. The saddle is what moves front and back in the Y direction. You're going to interact most with the cross slide, which has a dial for measurement, which moves the cutter into the project. It is measured in 0.01 or 1,000 increments. The carriage wheel is what moves the entire assembly left or right on the x-axis. And next to it is the clutch. This engages the feed and up to engage, down to disengage. This lets us get nice, consistent cuts into our metal. Opposite of the headstock is the tailstock. It can be set up to either drill into our material or support it. Right now it has a Jacob's truck with a center drill in it. Notice that big nut? That's used to loosen or tighten the tailstock. It can also be offset, but we'll see that in another video. What's that big screw? It's called a lead screw, and it's what drives the carriage. It rides along the bed, which connects all of these pieces together. Back around to the headstock. Up here you see the brake. This stops the spindle from spinning. Below it, this changes the direction of the carriage assembly, left or right. Notice the arrows right there. Below that is the quick change gearbox. This changes the speed to which the carriage goes left and right. And down there is the on-off button. One thing to note about the on-off button, it only goes one way. So you don't have to worry about turning the machine on in the wrong direction. That's our Logan lathe. Let's look at our South Bend. The South Bend is just a little smaller than the Logan. This is a 10-inch lathe. As we go through the parts here, I just want you to note how similar the two machines are. Let's take a look at the headstock. It is similar to the Logan. The position of stuff is just a little different. Here we can see that the lathe is set up to turn between centers. There's the faceplate and the live center. Here we have our quick change tool post. Notice on the compound rest, it has a dial just like the other one. Here is our cross slide or saddle. Again, notice the dial. It measures in 0.01 increments. Here is our carriage wheel. That'll turn the lathe left and right, and our clutch. Looking over here, here is the tailstock. Notice there is a dead center on there. Note the collet on the tailstock. It has to overlap the dead center by at least an inch to be installed correctly. Here's that lead screw that engages with the clutch and lets the carriage assembly move left and right. Back to our headstock. This controls the direction of the carriage assembly. Here's our brake for the spindle. Down here's our quick change gearbox that controls the speed by connecting to the lead screw, and the on-off button for this lathe. What do I want you to take away from this video? The general idea of what a metal lathe is. But more importantly, I want you to notice that even though these are two different metal lathes by two different companies, they use the same tooling and operating principles. Hopefully, that's why you're taking this class or watching this video. If you understand how these machines run and why they operate as they do, it doesn't matter the type, because they all do the same general processes. Again, there are many more parts to these lathes. This is just what you're going to use for our first project. I hope this helped you understand the metal lathe a little better. As always, if you have questions, please let me know. Otherwise, see you in the next video, kid. See you later. Bye.